Well, the first thing that came to my mind is in making a choice of which way we want to approach life. And I started with the idea that there's a difference between the Eastern and the Western philosophies, and certainly in the Western philosophy we tend to want to be more creative in the sense of what are the things that we establish here on the planet. What does our presence look like? What does our world look like? And how we establish that. And certainly we see that most people strive to create homes, jobs, types of things that tend toward affluence. And in the Eastern cultures, we see more of a greater tendency to accept the ravages of life that take place that they seemingly are not in control of. And they find the way to exist in there, and out of that existence achieve peace or happiness. Ours seems to be somewhat more active, and I'm curious about, and what I was looking at was making that type of choice. And then somewhere along the line it dawned on me that there really maybe isn't a choice. Maybe we do both. Maybe there's times that we sit in life and life goes on and seemingly without our participation in it, and we more or less act or react to it. Someone once had a definition that life is what takes place while we make other plans. While we're out there creating our ideas, our movements, our illusions. And I was looking at that, and it dawned upon me that however we measure that, we're still looking at it in terms of our physical existence. And perhaps that's not the way to look at it. That's a shallow interpretation of it. And as the scripture was being read by Reverend Macaulay this morning, it suddenly dawned upon me that we have the concept or the idea that's placed in front of us that in the one instance, when you give alms, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. What does that refer to? I mean, obviously it's, we have the obvious meaning of not being so caught up in what we give, but the thought came to me that maybe it's referring to our thought process and how we view things. We know that we have a objective mind and we have a superconscious or subconscious mentality, our creative aspect, not knowing what the left hand or what the right hand is doing. What does that really mean? Is that a referral to that when we give or we pursue something that's part of our inner nature, not to sit with our logical mind when we do something from an intuitive side, not to sit with our logical mind and look at it and reason it out and work it out and have all of the answers to it. And all of a sudden it became a little bit clearer in the idea that we have many people in this world that come to the study of God, and we know that gratitude is a wonderfully important aspect of our lives, but we also know that the expression of gratitude is an inner feeling. It's not words. And it's amazing to me how many people come to it and start going, oh, so we get more by saying thank you. And they start dealing with the words as opposed to the feeling, and then they end up disappointed that along the way they haven't achieved their goal. But they can achieve a considerable amount just by saying the words and using them in the appropriate situation to give the illusion. But what's happened is that they've sat down and looked at it as a formula. To get what I want on this physical plane, then this is what I do. I do, and then I get what I want. And I don't think that's what's being referred to at all. I think what's being referred to has to do with work that you do. on the inner levels. I think what happens is we have to get used to the idea that where the work is done is not physically on the outside. And I know that we do things physically on the outside. But the work that's done is on the inside. And if we can get used to the idea of going within, and that's where the work is done, and training ourselves as individuals, controlling our inner beings, so to speak, and controlling our thought process, so to speak, so that the concepts that we continue to plant within ourselves are the concepts that Jesus brought us, the concepts of love, the fruits of the Spirit, gentleness, kindness, goodness. If we keep working in those areas on a regular basis, morning, noon, and night, so to speak, and one's thought is to do it constantly, to be constantly in prayer, constantly in the attitude of that which we desire. And that doesn't mean, the larger house or more money or any of the rest of it, or it certainly can lead to that, but it doesn't mean that we look at the physical attributes as the things that give us greater happiness. What happens is, as we spend more time within, with the concept of love or the concept of abundance, as we spend more time and allow our inner being to grow in that, in our physical world, it grows. More of that comes into our lives. And the trick is not to be attached to it, not to let the physical take over, not to let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, so to speak, to allow ourselves to go within in secret and continue to build from within our foundation and our strength. And as that goes on, then we have this expression that takes place in our outer world. And yes, we may do things from a physical nature out of the aspect of love, but it's first kindled from within. And our first discovery within is to find out what it is that we love and care about and whether or not it fits within the kingdom. And as we continue to pursue that from an inner standpoint, our outer world grows and becomes more and more manifest, as though we were doing something from an outward standpoint. So, to me, it's a very interesting concept. And then one of the things that bothered me about the idea of whether or not we're using life or we're living life is, what's your concept of living life? I, for the life of me, don't understand some people's concept of life. They go and bungee jump off a bridge or parachute out of an airplane, and to them, that's living life to the fullest. The adrenaline rush or whatever it takes, and they look at you and say, you're not living life. You're not out there on the edge. And I think they've lost their marbles.